Tonight, something sacred will happen in your house. Not because of bricks or beams, not because of comfort or candles, but because the God of the universe does not wait for cathedrals to speak. He knocks, quietly, steadily, on the door of the common home. This night, your home may become holy ground, for every family is either a cradle of heaven or a rehearsal for hell. The difference, one invitation, one soul turning toward the light, one decision to welcome Christ not only in the chapel, but at the kitchen table. Tonight, when the world begins to quiet down, when dishes are done, lights dim, and footsteps soften, there will come a silence. Not the silence of loneliness or the void of nothingness, but a sacred kind of stillness. It is the silence that hovers just before God speaks. It is not empty, it is expectant. It waits not for noise, but for meaning. It is the hush that falls when heaven leans close to whisper into the soul. This silence is not an absence, but a presence. You'll feel it not as cold space, but as warm invitation. In that quiet moment, maybe in the living room as you sit alone, maybe in the hallway as you pass your child's door, maybe beside your spouse, as they fall asleep, something invisible will rest upon the air. Something holy. It will not demand your attention, but it will offer it. The world may mock silence, but God has always preferred it. You see, the devil is loud, always in a hurry, always blaring through temptation, panic, distraction. But God is the gentle breeze, the still small voice, the whisper behind the thunder. That's why silence terrifies the world, because in it, truth rises to the surface. And in your house tonight, if you dare to embrace that silence, to sit without the screen, to rest without the rush, to think without the noise, then your soul will begin to hear, not with ears, but with wonder. And the things you've been praying about, the things you thought God was ignoring, will begin to take shape. Not always with answers, but with peace. Yes, a silence will fall tonight, and if you welcome it, you will not be alone in the quiet. You will be with Him. Tonight, a battle will be fought within your home, but there will be no clash of metal or sound of war cries. This fight will be silent, invisible, and yet more real than anything seen with the eyes. It will take place not on the battlefield of nations, but in the hidden territory of the heart. It may begin at the dinner table, or in a hallway, or even in your own thoughts. And the enemy won't be someone outside. It may be your pride, your impatience, your bitterness, your weariness. The greatest wars are not those fought with swords, but those waged between good and evil in the soul. And tonight, in the small tests of character, when you are tempted to snap back in anger, to speak with sarcasm instead of kindness, to ignore rather than engage, to judge rather than understand, you will be handed a sword not made of steel, but of self-control, humility, and grace. If you win this battle, even if no one else notices, heaven does. Because every act of restraint, every quiet surrender of ego, every choice to love instead of retaliate, tips the balance of eternity. These are the victories that hell fears most. When a father forgives, when a mother holds her tongue, when a child prays instead of pouts, when a husband chooses faithfulness over fantasy, or when a wife chooses patience over pride. Do not wait for applause. This fight is won in secret. It is in the moment you pick up the mess you didn't make, the moment you decide not to raise your voice, the moment you offer a soft answer when your instinct is to withdraw. No sword was drawn, no blood was shed, but in that moment, something powerful fell. Your ego, your resentment, your selfishness, and in its place rose something far more powerful: love. So understand this. Tonight, if you feel the pressure, if you feel the temptation to lash out or shut down, do not be discouraged. It means you are on the battlefield. And if you choose righteousness even trembling, even quietly, then victory is already yours. For the greatest battles are won not in public, but in private, not before men, but before God. Tonight, someone in your house may forgive what they were planning to carry into tomorrow. A grudge, a wound, a quiet resentment, something buried but not dead may finally be laid to rest. And the most remarkable part, no one else may see it happen. No dramatic moment, no public reconciliation, no speech. Just a quiet decision in the sacred chamber of the heart. I will not carry this anymore. We often think forgiveness requires a grand gesture, but most often it begins as a whisper in the soul, not shouted in strength, but chosen in weakness. It is the decision to release what has been rehearsed 1,000 times in the mind, that memory of the harsh word, that moment of betrayal, that feeling of being misunderstood, unloved, dismissed. You are planning to remember it, to let it color your words, shape your silence, harden your heart. But tonight, God may nudge you towards something better. You see, forgiveness isn't forgetting that it happened. It's choosing to remember it differently, with mercy instead of bitterness. And that choice can change the atmosphere of a home. A single act of forgiveness can clear the spiritual air like rain after a long drought. Because forgiveness doesn't just heal the one forgiven, it heals the one who forgives. It may be a parent who lets go of an old hurt from their child. It may be a spouse who releases the resentment that has sat like a shadow over every dinner. It may be a child who decides to stop blaming and starts loving. And maybe, just maybe, the one who needs forgiveness most is you. Maybe tonight, you'll forgive yourself for not being enough, for the mistake that still haunts, for the failure no one else even remembers. And when that forgiveness happens, even if no one else knows, heaven does. Angels rejoice not only over souls saved, but over hearts softened, because forgiveness is not weakness. It is strength, the strength to look like Christ, even in your pain. So tonight, someone may forgive what they were going to remember, and when they do, they will break a cycle, silence a curse, and open a door to grace. And in that moment, your house will become more than a structure of wood and stone, it will become a temple of healing. Tonight, as lamps are switched on and rooms begin to glow with artificial light, something far brighter may fill your home, something that cannot be plugged in or turned off. It is the light of love, not the kind seen in films or heard in songs, but the quiet, steady light that comes from choosing another over yourself. That light may not shine from a chandelier, but from a kind word, a gentle touch, a sacrifice unnoticed by all but heaven. You see, a house can be perfectly lit and yet still be dark. It can have every bulb burning and still feel cold, tense, and hollow, because light without love is sterile. It illuminates the surface but leaves the soul untouched. But where love lives, even if the walls are cracked and the bulbs are dim, the room radiates a warmth that no electric current can generate. Love doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it's a mother staying up to fold the laundry no one notices. A father rising early to earn for a family he barely has time to see. A child offering a tired smile. A spouse making tea without being asked. These moments seem small, insignificant, even, but they shine with a brilliance that pierces through all darkness. Because love, real love, is sacrificial. It costs something, and because it costs, it changes things. The world is filled with grand displays and empty affections, but in your home tonight, one act of authentic love can alter the spiritual climate of everything. You may not realize how powerful a word of encouragement is to someone who's silently breaking. You may not see how your hug loosens the chains of someone's shame. You may never know how much light your patience gives to a heart that's been walking in emotional night. Don't underestimate what love can do under your own roof. For Christ said, "You are the light of the world." But that light does not come only from candles or stars. It comes when you love someone who didn't deserve it, forgive someone who didn't ask, or serve someone who never noticed. And when you do, the ordinary becomes radiant. So tonight, the lamps may glow, but the true light will come from something eternal, something divine. It will come from you if you choose to love, and in that moment, your house will not simply be lit. It will shine, tonight, in the quiet rhythm of your home as the clock ticks, as chairs creak, as footsteps fade down hallways. There will be a presence, not one that demands attention or takes up space, but one who enters with gentleness, reverence, and divine purpose. An unseen guest will sit among you, not with visible robes or a glowing countenance, but in the stillness between breaths, in the spaces love makes, in the silence we often overlook. This guest is Christ, the one who is always near, but rarely noticed. He will not interrupt your conversations, but he will listen intently. He will not force his way into your dinner table, but he will sit at the empty chair. He comes where he is welcomed, and even where he is barely invited. He is not a guest who waits for perfection, but one who blesses the mess. The dishes in the sink do not offend him. The tension in the room does not cause him to leave. He enters not because the house is perfect, but because the hearts inside it are precious. Maybe you'll sense him when a child falls asleep in peace. Maybe you'll feel him when you and your spouse choose grace instead of argument. Maybe you'll find him in the moment when you sit alone in the dark, wondering if your prayers matter. He'll be there not solving every problem, but carrying your pain, bearing your burdens, listening with eyes full of understanding. He does not sit among you as a judge, but as a savior, not as a visitor passing through, but as a friend who remains. And if you speak to him even in a whisper, even with trembling, he will answer. Not always with words, but with peace. Not always with outcomes, but with strength. When Christ is the guest in a house, the walls remember. The air changes. The ordinary becomes sacred. This guest brings more than comfort. He brings transformation. His presence convicts the proud, uplifts the broken, softens the hardened, and heals the weary. If your home feels like a battlefield, he brings peace. If it feels like a prison, he brings freedom. If it feels empty, he fills it with divine fullness. And perhaps the greatest miracle is this: even if no one else in the house sees him, he is still there. Even if everyone else forgets him, he still remains, because his love is not dependent on being noticed, only on being needed. So tonight, whether you're gathered at the table or alone in your room, whether joy fills the walls or sorrow weighs heavy, know this: an unseen guest will sit among you. And if your heart makes room for him, your home will never be the same. So I say to you, not with sentimentality, but with sacred assurance, this will happen in your house tonight if your soul is willing. Grace will knock, love will call, heaven will come home, and when you wake tomorrow, may you find not just a new morning, but a house transformed into a dwelling place of God. Amen.